And we're live on Tiny Tea Time. Today, I'm going to jump right into our topic, which is work life balance. Is it holding us back? Do you guys think we need to kind of introduce why we're talking about this topic today?
Oh, yes. Please tell us
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Great. So, for those of you who haven't heard, the CEO of one of the biggest technology companies in the world, Infosys, has come out and said that youth today need to work or put in more than 70 hours a week minimum if they want their country to compete with emerging economies. Right. So, you know,
Just a
obviously,
small correction. Former CEO.
oh, former CEO. I stand
Yeah.
corrected. But he's a larger than life figure, and everything that Mr. Narayan Murthy says does and should be given a lot of importance and should be thought about very very deeply. So hence today we've also decided to talk about this very topic, and we've kind of connected it to the entire work life balance philosophy that we've addressed many times. So, very quickly, where do you guys stand? Let's start with that. Kiran.
Well, I think I posted about it as well on LinkedIn, and
Yeah.
I don't agree.
Okay. You do not agree. Samya.
No.
Yeah, I don't agree to having a number associated with productivity at all.
Okay, great. Uh, I will say that I think we are missing the wood for the trees in this entire debate. Okay. I agree with both of you that, if you start putting a number 70 hours a week, it is automatically a problem statement because it's prescriptive, and that's the issue with it. And I think, Kiran, your whole point, do you want to tell us, like, why you disagree rather than me kind of explaining it?
Yeah, so I think even on my LinkedIn post, I kind of mentioned that, it is not about how long someone works.
Yeah.
Um, it is about the product at the end of that work, right? And what you have been able to achieve at that point of time. So, and this even at Tidy, I keep saying this to everyone is that if you have work that needs to be done, if you do it in 2 hours or you take 12 hours to do it just because your boss is sitting around, you know, that's up to you. But if you take 2 hours, no one's going to fault you for it at, at Tidy. You can do whatever else you want with the rest of the time. There are two ways that goes now. One is you could just, abandon work and go do something else and abandon your employer and go do something else, which is okay. Or you could kind of take up more.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that's what they're kind of talking about, right?
Yeah.
To give them benefit of the doubt is that everyone should be so passionate about the company they're working in that they should be willing to give 70 hours a week of themselves to the company rather than talking about it from an hours perspective. It should be about, what are they giving to the company and therefore to the country and all of that. So yeah, in my LinkedIn post, I basically said that it's really silly to talk about hours. It's more
Yeah.
about the productivity and what comes out of the time you spend, rather than talking about every youngster in India has to do 70 hours a week.
Do you think people kind of, press that panic button when they heard that 70 hours number because of what we've seen in China? I know there is another, leader who's come out and said that, look at China and their 996 work philosophy, right? This is that famous Alibaba equation where you work for 9 hours for, what is it? What's the whole thing?
No,
Nine
you
to
work,
nine. You
yeah,
work from 9
Nine
to
to
9
nine for 6 days a week.
6 days a
days
week.
a week, right? And I think because there is an existing map like that has been implemented in a certain country, which India supposedly competes with. Do you think that's why we are all reacting the way we are?
I think it's more about the work-life balance that struck a chord. I don't think it's about the hours per se. I think from most people that I kind of spoke to also, and the debate rages on in all the groups and WhatsApp groups and alumni groups and everything. But I think the bigger contentious point is work-life balance is not required, and that's all, bullshit.
Mm,
You should not care about work life balance. It should be all about work,
right.
and life is just there, but your main prerogative in life is to work and to
Mm.
produce for your company, right? I think that's what has struck a chord with most people, the negative sort of chord with most people, rather than the actual hours. And I think it's also, yeah. I'll stop over there. Let Soumya kind of
Yeah,
add her piece.
I think there was a lack of acknowledgement of everything else that is to my life as an individual apart from work, right? When you spoke about 70 hours, you kind of invalidated probably everything else that I need to get done in my life. I
Mm.
think that is what kind of irked a lot of people, including me. I think I won't discount myself from it, right? Uh, yeah, I think that's my point.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
what?
the one thing that everyone misses, right? So whether it was Narayan Murthy's comment or whether it was Kunal Shah's in his comment supporting Narayan Murthy's or anyone else's, I think most of these comments, what most people have missed, is coming from entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
And so when I think about myself, I definitely am mentally working 996 from a tidy perspective,
yeah.
right? Because it is my business, it is my vision, it is my sort of ambition, whatever it may be. So it's very natural for me to do that. Even when I'm playing with my kids, I'm potentially thinking about work,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And if a message comes, I will still respond. If there's a phone call, I will still kind of think about picking it up, even though I may not want to. um, so I think a lot of these statements are being made by entrepreneurs who are building or have built their own businesses, and then it is a very natural state to be in. It's a very natural state to be in because you're constantly on the ball for anything and everything. But
Yeah.
I don't think it is right to then take that thought process, which is yours, and then say everyone else in the country or in the company has to follow the same thought process.
In fact, I mean, to your point, right? That if I was going through a lot of Reddit, you know, threads and lots of conversations that people have, they're all jumping on this one thing that at the end of the day, a Narayan Murthy working 70, 80 hours a day, a week is very, very different because the rewards he gets are like massive as
Sure.
compared to that
Yeah.
employee who's getting paid for 40 hours. Because you're getting paid
Correct.
for 40 hours, you will put in 40 hours. Why will you put in 70 hours when you're still going to get paid only that much, right?
Correct.
So there is that whole debate about how much is expected. People have talked about, oh, what, are you encouraging a sweatshop attitude? And of course, there's been a lot said about that as well. The other thing, like you said, is, and to your point as well, Soumya, is that what constitutes work, right? As an entrepreneur, your life and blood has been given to this one company and to building a product, right? On the other hand, for example, someone like me, as an employee plus a mom, my life and blood goes towards that more than anything else, right? So for me, that is work too, and I think that is something, again, that's the sentiment. What is work? And maybe to give Mr. Murthy the benefit of doubt is maybe he's talking about that. Work hard. Was he specifically talking about work hard at your desk in the office? I don't think he said that. Am I being too kind?
Well, maybe. I think he was talking about being productive from a company GDP and country GDP perspective. If
Mhm.
India wants to compete with China, unfortunately, it's not by being a better mother. Maybe not, right? Not initially, right now. It's about the
There is
GDP.
enough.
That's his
There
focus.
is.
Yes, yes, there is. But I'm saying the focus is on the GDP side of things, which is how can you produce more so that you become a bigger market than China? It is not about how do you develop a better culture as a country, and as youngsters grow up, how do you develop them to become better youngsters and have the right values? No, it is not about that. I think he was talking about very much GDP kind of focus.
Yeah. And
So maybe you are
unfortunately,
giving
that's
him
why
a bit too much
too
slack.
much credit. And that's
Yeah.
actually, I'm playing the devil's advocate here because that is exactly what got my goat. Because you are not defining work the way work in reality is, right? Of course, someone else did point out then that, he's talking about the youth, right? You're only talking about young
Hmm.
people who do not have responsibilities, who do not have children, who are not married, don't have to run a home. That's when you need to put in the work. But then again, the youth in our country, again, how do you define that? Because a lot of people get married young, especially when you're talking about women, and this is where I have the biggest problem, right? Women get married very young, start families very young, so you have automatically excluded them from this entire conversation because they still have to run both. There is no point in which they can say only this is my
To say,
life focus
yeah,
and work, right?
to say 70 hours a week somewhere also feels very patriarchal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've kind of alienated women from the equation. But that's not just women. I think we are alienating caregivers, no matter what gender they are. We are
True.
probably also alienating people who are really good performers but might have some health issues because of which they can't work those hours. So somewhere that entire statement of 70 hours also does feel very patriarchal by nature.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't agree with either of you. I think it's not about man, woman, or any of that. I think even for a fresher, even for a guy straight out of college who's 21 years old, has zero responsibilities, maybe he doesn't even have a rent to pay because he
Mm.
stays with his parents. And maybe he doesn't even need to work for a living, but he's choosing to work for a living. Even for that privileged person, I think mandating 70 hours is silly. Mandating not having anything else apart from your job is silly. I don't think we should now get into, oh, but work is work for the household, work is for the company, work is for the society, work is for XYZ. I think, what this whole conversation starts with the as perspective that they're talking about office work,
Mm.
and they're talking about you producing revenue for the office and therefore for the company and therefore for the country, right? So I don't think the man versus woman issue or any gender or role or anything kind of comes into play.
But the thing is, it I think it should, even if it didn't in this particular statement, only because it's an oversimplification, then, right, of what he said. And the only reason I say that is, and I think somebody made this point on your LinkedIn, Kiran, is that, you have a large percentage of the working population in our country, in India, that actually puts in way many more hours at work. Forget about working for home,
Hmm.
etc., etc. You're talking about the labor force who put in
Yeah, of
crazy
course.
number of hours, get paid a pittance for it. So what about that, right?
Yeah,
So again, we can argue that, oh,
yeah, of
he's only
course. That
talking.
has nothing to do with role and gender, though.
Hmm.
That's about a different type of worker, right? So that's what I'm saying. I think don't let's not get into that conversation of which gender does it
Oh,
offend
yes.
more, which role does it offend more. I don't think it has to be about that. It's just it offends every single person who's working for a living in
Hmm.
various ways.
It's also very interesting you say this, and you brought up the entire fresher who joins the organization scenario. But I saw it across LinkedIn amongst a few people, even those who kind of disagree with the 70-hour work week concept. They kind of agree that when you join the workforce, you should slog. That is how you can build that strong foundation. So what's your take on this?
I don't think slogging is the answer, right? I know for a fact I didn't slog. I didn't work 20 hours a day. What I did, and this is a conversation I had with someone else as well over the last couple of days. What tends to happen is those who complete tasks faster are seen as the what do you say, as the ones who can take on more responsibility, right? And they are then fast tracked from a growth perspective, and they are actually given more to do,
Yeah.
right? So the problem then becomes there's this group of people who are really good and efficient and probably do their work in less than the average person's time, but then they also get more responsibilities. Now some might like it, some might not like it, but the way the corporate world works is that is an acknowledgement of the corporate world that you are going to be a leader, right?
Hmm.
So you'll get more tasks, you'll get more responsibilities, and if you're the kind of person who loves it, you will start doing more of that. And that's really during the early years. right? During the later years, now where we all are, post 40, having worked in the corporate world for 20 plus years, we don't really want more work hours, right? That's not what we're trying to do. And if someone says, "Here, take on more responsibilities," we'd be like, "Thank you, but let's figure out how to do it more efficiently." But when you're younger, you want to take that. At least those who are ambitious want to take that on more. So the way I would interpret that is someone who's really keen on building their corporate life, growing up the corporate ladder, really going out and becoming a manager as soon as possible, team lead, blah blah blah. They will do things more efficiently and therefore be given more roles and responsibilities.
Mm.
And that is perhaps a way of kind of looking at it rather than saying every single 21-year-old, please make sure that you are working 20 hours a day
Yeah.
and you sleep for 4, right?
I
I don't
think,
think that makes sense.
yeah. But do any of you do either of you believe that the youth today, are they lazy? Is that because this is also a response to that, right? I think he was talking about people in general, and also a response to trends in the world, global trends like quiet quitting and global trends like lazy girl era and all of those things, right? So is it that the young today are lazy?
No, no, they don't define productivity and hustle culture the way we do. It's
Mm.
the same thing that happened to the workforce when millennials came in. We are seeing it's a transition. It's a new culture that they bring in. We will struggle to kind of understand it and make space for that. I think that's where we are at. I don't think they are lazy. I think they want to do meaningful work, and I think for them work life balance is very important. So they are kind of putting their foot down about it.
Mm. Okay. And cold response from Kiran.
Yeah, he's like,
No, I don't think they're lazy, but why this change has happened is because they're more vocal.
Mm.
Even during our generation, even in the early 2000s when I started working in 2002 3, not everyone wanted to work and not everyone wanted to hustle. Not everyone wanted to kind of be the manager and the boss and blah blah blah, like I was saying earlier. It's just that they were not vocal or there were not enough places or avenues to be vocal about it. Now I think the youth today have a lot more freedom to be vocal and a lot more sources and channels to be vocal about it, which is why we think that it is changing. But if you see, there are youth today who still have the hustle culture, who still want to go out and do a lot more than what is given to them, who still want to go out and climb that corporate ladder. There are still a ton of those people. It's just that those who are not that have become a lot more vocal about it, and which is why now we also have you know thanks to social media these amazing different terms like quiet
Yeah.
quitting and lazy whatever and whatever it may be. We're now kind of categorizing them because there are channels to categorize them.
Mm.
But I don't think it has changed. They've just become a lot more vocal and a lot more confident of themselves, which is great.
Yeah. Now to rock the boat a little bit more, do you think, I mean, because this is a point he's made as well, that people need to be working those hours in order to, the it almost felt like the outcome ultimately is nation building. And there are
Hmm.
people who, talked about that as a problem statement too, because is it the individual's responsibility to put in those extra hours? Again, I wonder, right? Which is why I was saying, are we missing the wood for the trees here? Because is it about putting in those hours and sacrificing a lot of yourself, because it implies sacrifice as well, right? In order to build the nation up, in order to, help the country progress. What is your thought? What are your thoughts on that?
I think for me, again, I kind of look at it a little bit differently, right? Is
Mm. Okay, we'll wait for Kiran to come back and finish his thought because I think he's had an issue. Soumya, you want to go?
yeah, I think I see things from a rather individualistic perspective on all of these things, right? But I think of things from a personal choice perspective as well. right? But I think what Kiran would have probably said, and I think it's about this, like your productivity is not your number of hours. It is not like we don't have folks who are already putting in 70 plus hours, right? We have our doctors, we've got people in litigation who are putting in those hours. We probably have teachers who are not recognized enough for the work that they do. They are putting in 70 plus hours. I've seen my parents put in those kind of hours. So it's not like there aren't people who aren't putting in that hours. Are we seeing a change because of that? Is there like proper validated numbers that say that because these people are putting in those kind of hours, we are seeing some kind of impact? Is there some number like that? That's my question.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair point. Kiran, welcome back.
Yeah, we need to really do nation building, and the electricity that's kind of so unstable. But anyway, the way I look at nation building is very different, right? I think ever since we've known each other, right, Devi, since maybe 20 plus years ago, I think I've always maintained that India is the next big market. And maybe
Mm.
now we're starting to see that, right?
Yeah.
Really. I mean, even 20 years ago, I thought it was really stupid to go and invest your time and resources somewhere else in another country, even though I did it. But India is basically where you would have a huge amount of opportunity to grow. So I would say, putting on my entrepreneurship hat, from a nation building perspective, I would say that majority of the growth is going to happen in India. And if an Indian entrepreneur now goes out and does something somewhere else, it is a loss for the country,
Yeah.
right? Rather than having been at home and, building wealth, building value, building everything over here. So from that perspective, I partly kind of acknowledge the nation building part,
Mhm.
where I see that, uh, there was this whole era where every single college graduate thought that to do their masters, they have to go outside India. And then they
Mhm.
have to work outside India. And then they have to continue working outside India in order to be, you know, in order to achieve their dreams. But I think that's not the case today. And and if more and more youth kind of see that, then there is a very big opportunity from a nation building perspective in terms of wealth creation, value creation, community building, all of that. So for me, that's how I look at the whole nation building statement. Again, I don't agree with the 70 hours part, but
Mm.
yeah, I think it is time, we consciously kind of work on building that sort of, what do you call it, knowledge wealth in India and the creation in India itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, my dog has an opinion as well on this topic, clearly. But I mean, I've again, I think it's applicable to a certain type of worker, right, Kiran? You said that
Yes.
in the beginning. The
Yes.
people who are entrepreneurs who are building something,
Yeah.
um, then you expect that. On the flip side, ultimately, to read between the lines, what we do need is we need people who are more passionate about what they do, right? Find
Hmm.
that thing that you love doing and do it well. It comes down to that. Or even if you take away that, forget about the passion. Say you can't, not everyone is meant to find that one purpose and then go after it. If you're at work,
Yeah.
put in those hours, be honest, be dedicated for those whatever many hours you can do, and then move on to the other thing. I think it comes down to that. Like, it's not, and I think he said they should stop. One of the statements he said is, don't spend it on entertainment or entertaining yourself. Again, I think there's a problem there as well, because it almost makes entertainment sound like it's a bad thing. Like, don't watch TV because then you'll become lazy and you'll never get anything done. That's not fair either, right? Because there is a
Yeah.
lot to be said about how there's enough proof on how the brain works, how the body works, how you need rest, how you need to recuperate and then come back, and then how you can do so much more. You kind of unlock something in yourself after a period of rest, right?
In
So there's
fact, if
that.
you don't consume entertainment, then that whole industry is not growing.
That's also true.
for the
Yeah.
nation. So you
For
need to
sure.
consume in order for that industry to grow. So yeah,
You need to
I
consume
think,
entertainment. You need to
I
place
yeah,
food.
I think what the other thing that kind of irks me about that entire statement of 70-hour work week is also it felt like a mandate, right? You must do this 70 hours work week instead of probably, I think, for entrepreneurs, leaders who run these companies. I think what would have been a more important question to ask would have been how can I motivate my folks to come with that passion, to put in more hours? If that's what you want, that could have been a question that you ask yourself, right? What can motivate folks who aren't inherently motivated because your company is your product? You have that passion that comes naturally. So if that's not the case, how can you motivate folks to put in that more hours, like, for your company, for the nation as well?
Yeah.
yeah,
No, fair point. In fact, we've spoken about this, right? There are internal motivators and there are external motivators within any workplace. The external is what the company might bring to the table, right? At one time, it was having entertainment within the office, which was your foosball tables, etc., etc. Then the motivators could, today it is more about the employee experience, and that's what we keep talking about again and again. How do you create an environment at work which encourages people to be their best selves, to bring them their best selves, to do the best work that they can, create that environment of, productivity. And then in this case, it's the internal motivator, right? The youth should want to do this because of the outcome, which is nation building. Now is the time. I think that was the problem with the statement. Two things: prescriptive. Second, what is the ultimate goal? Is it too far away? Is it asking too much? Maybe that these are all things that we should kind of think about, right?
yeah. I think the only thing I'll say, and this is something I don't wish for anyone, but as an entrepreneur and as a leader, seeing someone go over and above and working and doing more than what was expected of them is fantastic. You
Yeah.
cannot ignore that, right? It is awesome because you haven't mandated it. I think to Soumya's point, if the fact that it is mandated is a really silly way to get people motivated about it.
Hmm.
If there are other ways to motivate them to do that, then that's what you should do as a leader. You don't go to your staff and say, hey, from now on, you're working 9 to 9. Immediately, you will see a drop in productivity where they will do less than what they were doing from a 9 to 4 perspective, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you really want them to do those extra hours, maybe find a better way to kind of motivate them to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. I think interesting. I'm going to put out a question that a person asked on LinkedIn, right? Uh, because everyone's been debating, and a lot of us have been against this entire concept. This person just posed a question, and he was like, "Stop for a moment, and would you dare not work those 70 hours if everyone else in your company was doing that? Like, if your culture is already like that, what would you do in that case?"
I've interviewed a gazillion people who have moved companies because of that exact reason. So maybe if you are a person who is okay with that culture, maybe you're okay with it. But as I said, through my career, I've interviewed a lot of people who want to move because they suddenly ended up in a company which is all about the number of hours you're clocking, not the
Right.
productivity. And then that doesn't suit them. So I would say if there's anyone in that position, Tydy is also hiring for various roles. But yeah, otherwise, it's there are different organizations meant for different people. And so you will always find an organization that's a good fit for you. And the organization has to find a good fit with the individual as well.
Yeah.
Great. I think that brings us kind of to the end of our time. 30 minutes to discuss 70 hours of work a week. I think we did quite well. Any closing statements?
No, I think
Not measuring. not measuring productivity in 70 hours, 35 hours, or 40 hours. I think I'm off that debate of what is the ideal number of hours. I think that just puts you in the same trap. Maybe we should discuss how to measure productivity. I think probably we are stuck there. If we are not able to quantify everyone's productivity, let's shift the focus towards that, and just quit on the number of hours part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe talk about strategies to motivate people to work more without giving them the hours. How do they produce more rather
Yeah,
without an hourly sort of count? Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, very
And how do you create an environment of where your people are happy to do the work? I think, right, they should be
Yeah.
willing, and it should come from within to be able to do the work. And I think that is the best kind of work you'll ever get. Creativity or whatever it might be will flow when people are self motivated and driven from the inside to achieve something. Now, what that reward at the end of the day, it varies from person to person, but ultimately it comes down to it coming from within. So no mandating anything for anyone is our whole philosophy. And on that note, we will wrap it up. Thank you to everyone who's joined in. Until next time, it's goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.